If you're a high school student who's planning to study abroad after your 12th standard, then you're probably confused. There are more than 190 countries and every country has its own pros and cons. So in this video, I've done my research on multiple factors such as ROI, employability, stayback options, quality and quantity of programs to tell you which are the top 10 countries to study abroad after 12th standard. Now, my list is based on my own research and my own experience, but everyone needs to do their own research before they decide which countries to select and which countries to reject. Hi, my name is Amya. I'm a study abroad counselor that helps hundreds of students get into the world's top ranked universities. So if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel. It'll be a win-win for the both of us. Now, before I get into the main list, I want to make two honorable mentions. These are two countries which are decent, but for some reason or another do not make it to the list of top 10. These two countries are France and Italy. Now, a lot of students are interested in studying at the undergrad level in France and Italy because they have good universities and they have some English taught programs as well. Plus, many of these top ranked public universities are pretty affordable to international students, with many of them charging lesser than 5 lakh rupees in terms of tuition fee on an annual basis, which is pretty affordable. The only challenge with France and Italy is the job situation. Both these countries have a youth unemployment rate of close to 20%, which means that 1 in 5 of their own people do not have a job. So when their own people don't have a job, what are the chances that you, an international student, is going to get a job? And at this point, many students actually ask me, but Amya, isn't it possible that I study in France or Italy and then I take up a job somewhere else in Europe or the rest of the world? Now in theory, this is possible, but in practice, this is very difficult to do because you need to compete with other students in that local country for jobs. You need to network with people in that other country, and you probably need to also learn a new local language. Having said that, if you're getting into one of the top French or Italian universities for a program that leads to a job in a skill shortage list such as in STEM, medicine or logistics, then you can go. But for everyone else, I would only suggest putting these countries as backup and focusing on other countries. With that said, let's get into the main list. Now coming in at number 10, our first country for the day is the UAE. Now in a recent video, I had actually told students to avoid the UAE. And that time, my concern was simple. The war between the US and Iran that was destabilizing the entire Middle East. But since then, things have taken a positive turn. Things are calming down, which is why I feel comfortable now to put UAE in my list of top 10 countries. But my other concern with respect to the PR pathways still remains. Most of the other countries on this list will allow students 1 to 2 years of stay back after completion of their graduation. But in the UAE, you get only 6 months. That too, if you graduate from a university which is ranked in the QS top 500. Plus, even if you do get a job in the UAE, you can't really become a PR. Now, yes, you can continue working for the rest of your life, but the UAE does not have a streamlined pathway to PR or immigration. You do have a few specific pathways, such as the golden visa route, but that is out of reach for most people because that requires an investment of something like 4 crore rupees. Now, the UAE admittedly does have some really good universities. Many universities from other countries are setting up campus in the UAE. So for example, you have IIT Delhi Abu Dhabi campus, BITS Pilani, NYU Abu Dhabi, University of Manchester and University of Birmingham. If you can get into this quality of university in the UAE, you should definitely consider it. Next up, coming in at number 9, we have Switzerland. Switzerland has the 4th highest GDP per capita in the world, and that matters because GDP per capita is correlated to national income. So this means that people who study and work in Switzerland actually earn a high amount of money. Plus taxes are pretty low when you compare it to other countries on the list. Switzerland is also very safe. It's an innovative country, and the most important part is that the top ranked universities such as ETH and EPFL charge international students less than 6 lakh rupees per year at the undergraduate level, which makes them very affordable. But with all these advantages, Switzerland does have some downsides. The first downside is that at the undergraduate level, most programs are taught in either French or German. So this means that you need to learn not 1 but 2 local languages to expand the number of universities that you can apply to. The second problem with Switzerland is the fact that they offer only a 6-month stay back. And because it's not really a part of the EU, you also can't use pathways such as the EU Blue Card to migrate to other countries. The third issue with Switzerland is the cost of living. Yes, tuition fees are affordable, but living costs can often exceed 15 to 20 lakh rupees per year. So whatever you're saving in tuition, you're more than making up for in terms of living expenses. Now, if you can get into one of the Swiss top ranked universities, if you're willing to learn 2 local languages, and if you're planning to study something like natural sciences, computer science, engineering or medicine, or even hospitality, you can consider Switzerland. But for all other fields, I would suggest going to some other country. Coming in at number 8, we have Singapore. Now, Singapore is close to India, both in terms of its geography as well as in terms of its culture. Plus, most undergraduate programs are taught in English, and Singapore does have NUS and NTU, which are two universities that regularly feature in the top 20 universities of the world. It's also a very safe country to go to and has a relatively stable job market. The best part of an education in Singapore is the Ministry of Education grant. This is a grant offered by the Singaporean government, which basically halves the tuition fee if you get admitted into one of the 13 autonomous institutions in Singapore. Not everyone gets it, but around 80% of international students do get it. But with all these advantages, why haven't I ranked Singapore higher in this list? Well, there are a few reasons. The first reason is that the job market is actually pretty lopsided. So while you do have jobs in areas like CS, precision engineering, and even finance or business, you don't have too many jobs in other areas. The second issue is that Singapore is a tiny city-state. It hardly has any universities, and only a handful of universities that are even worth applying to at the undergraduate level, and these are very tough to get into. And then the third reason why I do not suggest Singapore to most students is because the Ministry of Education grant itself has a caveat. You see, if you want to avail this grant, you need to sign a bond, and as part of that bond, you are required to work in a Singapore-based entity for 3 years after graduation. Now, what happens if you graduate from a Singaporean university and you don't get a job? In that case, you have to pay back the entire grant money to the Singaporean government with interest. Now, in theory, you can appeal to the government and you can extend the duration through which you can pay back this bond, but that's not a state that you want to be in. And the final reason why I don't suggest Singapore to everyone is because getting a PR in Singapore has increasingly become challenging over the years as the number of international immigrants have increased. The process is not as transparent and decisions are mostly made on a case-to-case basis. Next, coming in at number 7, we have the Netherlands. With more than 90% of the Dutch people speaking English, Netherlands, along with the other Nordic countries, is one of the few countries in Europe where you can genuinely survive in terms of your day-to-day life as well as in terms of getting entry-level jobs only with the knowledge of English, which is primarily why I'm adding it to this list. Now, in addition to that, you have some very high-ranked universities such as TU Delft, the University of Amsterdam, Utrecht University, Maastricht University, and Leiden University, which are known worldwide for their academic rigor, but which are arguably easier to get into than the Ivy League or Oxbridge type of universities. Salaries are pretty high too, and the job market is stable as well. But then there are two downsides when it comes to Netherlands. The first downside is that it's a tiny country, and because of that, there is a lack of affordable housing. The second downside when it comes to Netherlands is the lack of English taught programs at the undergraduate level. Yes, you can find a few programs in areas such as CS, Tech, engineering, business, economics, and psychology, but for other fields you're not going to be able to find too many English taught programs. And so even though 90% of the Dutch people do speak English, you probably will need to learn the local language for those programs. The other disadvantage, actually this is the third disadvantage, is the cost of education. Most Dutch universities will charge international students between 18 to 25 lakh rupees per year, and so this puts it out of the range for most international students. But hey, if you can afford it, Netherlands is certainly worth your consideration. Next up at number 6, we have Ireland. Last year, a record-breaking 13,000 Indian students chose Ireland for their education, and for many good reasons. Many of the bank companies have set up their EU headquarters in Ireland. Many banks such as JP Morgan Chase, Citi, and Bank of America have expanded operations into Ireland after Brexit. On top of that, Irish universities offer a 3-year undergraduate program instead of a 4-year undergraduate program, which means that there's lower opportunity cost. And incomes in the country have risen very quickly. In 1990, the GDP per capita was only $14,000. Last year, I believe it was something like $112,000. So just in 35 years, they've basically 8x'd their per capita GDP, which means people are earning much more now than what they did in the past. But with all this said, there are a few disadvantages to Ireland. The first disadvantage to Ireland is that the job market is a bit lopsided. Yes, you do have jobs in areas such as tech, CS, finance, sales, and pharmaceuticals, but not much else. The second disadvantage in Ireland is the fact that you only have 2 universities, UCD and TCD, which are of global repute. Other universities in Ireland are not really known for their academic rigor and don't have much brand value outside Ireland. The third issue with Ireland is the rise in the cost of living. Salaries have increased, but so have costs, which means that you're going to be able to save lesser than what you probably expect. So if you're interested in studying a program in one of the job sectors that I just described, and if you don't care too much about academic rigor or about global prestige, you can certainly consider Ireland. We're now entering the top 5, and coming in at number 5 is the UK. And I know what you're thinking, why is UK in the top 5? Aren't they facing a job crisis? And you're right about that, but you need to understand some history. This is not the first time that the British economy is going through a job crisis. This happened once in the 1990s. It also happened in 2008 during the financial crash. But in both times, the British economy recovered in 4 to 5 years. Now, the current job cycle started in 2024, and I'm expecting that things will recover by 2028 or 2028-9 if you go by history. And so this means that by the time you graduate, the British economy economy will be in a much better shape than what it is right now, which makes it a strong option for most international students. And if you're still worried about getting a job in the UK, what you need to do is you need to combine a course which is a part of the skill shortage list with a top tier education at a university like an Oxbridge or an LSE, or with a program that offers a work placement year. And for those of you who don't know what a work placement year is, it's basically 1 semester or 2 semesters during your undergrad education where you actually don't go to university. You actually work at a company with a real-time, full-time job. And there are two advantages to this. The first advantage is obviously you get paid as a full-time employee, so you can use your salary to cover a large cost of your education. The other part is that you get international work experience, relevant work experience that you can actually leverage to get a full-time job. And if you're still concerned, then before you chuck the UK from your list of universities, you need to head over to the UCAS website and look at different universities and their placement rates. The UCAS provides this data for almost all programs and for all universities. And what you will quickly find is that many universities still have strong placements. Case in point, London School of Economics Bachelors in Management program. 3 in 4 graduates get a job within 1 year of graduating at an average starting salary of around 60 lakh rupees. That's pretty darn good. Next at number 4, we have Australia. Now, Australia has only 2% of the population of India, but 9 universities which are ranked in the top 100 QS ranked universities of the world, which means that the quality of education is definitely there. But you need to be a bit careful with Australia, just like with the UK, in that you need to look at the skill shortage list and apply to programs that lead to jobs in that skill shortage list. Now, the great thing about the Australian skill shortage list is that they provide this by province. So you can target universities in different provinces based on the skill shortage list of that particular province. Ignoring this can be risky because you might end up at a university in a province where there is no skill shortage for the kind of program that you are planning to study. The other issue with Australia is that they have been tightening the visa restrictions. Now, yes, they have increased the financial requirement for all students both at the undergrad and the postgraduate level, but the larger problem is that now you need to prove to the Australian government as a part of the genuine student requirement that you are indeed going to Australia to study and not to immigrate. And they're doing this by asking 5 essay type questions. So if you don't get your story straight in each of these 5 essay type questions, you will get rejected. However, the job market is relatively stable, and you do get a 2-year stay back, which can be extended by another 1 or 2 years depending upon which university, which city you graduate from and where you work. So Australia is a great choice. Just be careful about the visa requirements and the skill shortage list. Okay, so we finally made it to the top 3. Coming in at number 3, we have Canada. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't Canada just reject 2 out of every 3 Indian student applications when it comes to visa? And you're right, but not exactly. You see, in Canada, you have a 2-tier education system. You have universities which provide academically rigorous programs and which confer degrees. They're pretty expensive too. And then on the other hand, you have colleges that have programs which are more vocational in nature and which confer diploma. And their programs are actually very affordable. Now, what happened between 2019 and 2024 was that many of these colleges started offering commissions to Indian agents. And so Indian agents actually started pushing Indian students to these sorts of colleges, to these sorts of programs that are not academically rigorous. And what did those students do? They went to Canada, and instead of studying, they would work full time. Now, this is a violation of the student visa in Canada. And this is something that the Canadian government actually wanted to clamp down on, which is why you saw a spike in the student visa rejection rates. But really, if you're going to one of Canada's top 10 or 15 universities, you don't have anything to worry about. In fact, your Canadian education can act as a springboard to the American job market, which is the world's largest white-collar job market. The way it works is you complete your education in Canada, you work for a few years, you become a PR, typically within 4 to 5 years of graduation, and then your company might depute you on a project to the United States. This is something that many of my batchmates in the MBA program at the University of Toronto actually did. So again, your Canadian education can act as a way to enter into the US job market, and if you get into the top 10 or 15 universities in Canada, you should totally go for it. Next up, at number 2, we have Germany. Free education at top public universities, a high standard of living, and one of the safest countries in the world. So if everything's so great in Germany, why have I ranked it at number 2 and not at number 1? There are actually 4 reasons for this. The first reason is that at the undergraduate level, you have only 250 programs that are taught in English. Now that sounds like a lot, but when you remove all those programs that are not related to your major, and when you remove the private universities, you're left with very few options. The second reason is that the vast majority of Indian students, those who study at Indian boards, state board, CBSE board, or even ICSE board, they aren't actually qualified to directly apply for undergraduate programs in Germany. For such students, Germany requires that Indian students do 1 year of student college or prep school. And so to get into student college, you need to take an entrance exam. You need to complete 1 year in student college, and then you also need to take an exit exam. And it is on the basis of the marks of your exit exam that you get allotted a university in Germany. And so naturally, many Indian students find this very risky, and they choose a less riskier pathway for undergrad into Germany. That other pathway is to do 1 year of undergrad at an Indian college and then transfer to a public German university. But this pathway has its own risks. The first risk is that the university that you do your first year from may not be recognized in Germany. The second risk is that even if your university is recognized, if the subjects don't match the exact requirement of the German university, you might still get a reject. And so for this reason, most students from the ICSE, CBSE and state boards actually choose a different country at the undergrad level, or they go to Germany for their masters. The third reason why Germany is number 2 and not number 1 on the list is because of something called as the APS requirement. Now the APS requirement or the APS certificate is a certificate that is issued by the German government to students who are a part of the Indian boards. And this certificate tells German universities that your high school diploma is indeed valid in Germany, and so they can accept you for admission. The problem is that recently the German government came up with a notification saying that Indian students need to get at least 70% to be eligible for the APS certificate. So this means that anyone who gets less than 70% is not eligible to even apply to something like student college in Germany, and therefore the number of students who can realistically apply to German universities is further reduced. The fourth and final reason why Germany is number 2 and not number 1 is because of the salaries and taxes. Salaries in Germany are lower than you'd expect. They're around 2/3 of other advanced economies like the United States, and you pay way more in taxes, oftentimes 40 to 50%. So in the long run, you're going to end up saving much lesser than you could have, and you're going to end up earning much lesser than your potential, even though you're saving a lot of money in the short run. So yes, Germany is a great country to go to, but you need to be aware of all these caveats. At number 1, the country which according to me is the best country for your undergrad is still the United States. Now you must be thinking I'm crazy because of everything that's going on with Donald Trump's presidency, but hear me out. The US is the world's largest economy. It has the most number of high-paying jobs. Its economy is larger than the other 9 countries that you heard about on this list combined. If you take a look at the top 2,000 companies in the entire world by revenue, then more than 600 of those are in the United States alone. Think about sectors like tech and finance. The headquarters of most major companies are in the US. Think about manufacturing even. The industrial output of the United States is 2.5 times the industrial or manufacturing output of a country like Germany, a country that we usually think of as a manufacturing superpower. It's also one of the most innovative countries in the world. It ranks number 3 in the Global Innovation Index, and it's number 2 in terms of total number of patents filed in any single given year. Now, previously, one challenge that American companies had in terms of hiring international students is the H-1B lottery system. For those of you who don't know, the H-1B visa is the visa that you require to work in the US after graduation. And the problem is that this system is lottery based. So till around 2024, the selection rate for international students in H-1B was around 25%. Now, if I'm a company and I want to hire you an international student, I'm taking a huge risk because I'm spending a lot of money, time and energy in training you. But if you don't get an H-1B, then all that time, energy and money has gone to waste because your chances of getting selected are only 1 in 4. And Donald Trump's policies, believe it or not, have actually helped international students get the H-1B. Specifically, he did 2 things. Number 1, he banned people from applying from multiple companies for the H-1B. Number 2, he imposed a fee of $100,000 on all those H-1B petitions that were filed from outside the US. So this fee of $100,000 would be applicable to companies such as TCS and Infosys, which directly apply on behalf of their employees for H-1B visas from a country like India. But this is not applicable to those students who are already studying in the United States. So consequently, what happened was that the percentage of international students who got the H-1B actually increased. You don't have to believe me. Take a look at the USCIS data. In 2024, again, the selection rate was around 24%. That in 2026 has gone up to 35%. And I think that this is going to keep going up in the future. So this means that as an international student, you are now more attractive to American companies than what you were before. And if you're still worried about Trump's policies, just remember that he's only going to be president till 2029. Because the US has a 2-term limit, he cannot be president after that. So by the time you even need an H-1B, he's long gone. He's no longer president. So that shouldn't actually worry you in the long term. Now, in addition to all of this, the US also has some very high quality universities. In fact, 26 of the world's top 100 universities are in the US and is far ahead of any other country. In addition to that, it also offers the most flexible undergraduate education of any country in the world. If you want to major in 2 areas, you can do that. If you want to go deep in one area, you can do a major with a concentration. If you aren't sure about what you want to study in undergrad, you can apply to many universities even without declaring your major. This kind of flexibility is not offered by any other country. Now, the other thing to understand about the US education system is that it's pretty expensive, and that's the one real true downside. The cost of education, tuition and living combined for the entire 4 years of your undergraduate education in the US will range anywhere between 1 and 3 crores. But you need to understand that many universities provide merit-based scholarships as well as financial aid, which is need-based. In fact, according to a 2020 College Board report, there are around 1,000 universities in the US that offer need-based financial aid to international students, and many universities such as Harvard, Yale, and Princeton offer up to 100% need-based financial aid to international students, which means that they not only pay for your tuition fees, but also for the living expenses for the 4 years. And there is no other university in the entire world that can actually match this. So that wraps up my list of the top 10 countries to study abroad in 2026 for undergrad. If it's one thing I want you to take away from the video, it's this: no country is perfect. Every country has its own pros and cons, and so stop searching for the perfect country. If you're confused about which country you want to apply to universities in 3 or 4 countries and decide the final country based on the quality of admit that you get. This will reduce the decision-making pressure early on. And if you didn't see a country that you're considering on the list, comment it below. I'll get back to you with my thoughts. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.